At Thanksgiving dinner, my father called me dead weight in front of the whole family. Then he pointed at the front door and said, "Go sleep in your car. Maybe the cold will finally teach you humility." My mother did not defend me. She did not even look shocked. She only touched my brother Chase's arm and whispered, "Don't let her ruin your night." That was the moment I knew the meal was never about family. It was about showing me where I stood. By midnight, my brother had posted the Thanksgiving photo online. Everyone was smiling around the table. My chair was cropped out. The caption said, "Thankful for the ones who stay loyal to family. Legacy isn't for quitters." 3 weeks later, a woman from the bank called and asked why my name was on a loan I had never signed. And by Friday afternoon, my father, the man who told me to sleep in my car, was sitting across from me in a small-town bank conference room begging me not to let him lose the family house. My name is Nora Callahan, and if you had seen my family from the outside, you would have thought we were ordinary in the best possible way. We were not rich. We were not powerful. We were the kind of family people trusted because we had been in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania for generations. My father, Tom Callahan, owned Callahan Hardware, a small store on Main Street with a faded green awning, squeaky wood floors, little drawers of nails and screws, and the same old key machine my grandfather had used for 40 years. My mother, Elaine, volunteered at church-baked pies for every fundraiser and knew exactly how to smile in public so people thought our home was warmer than it really was. My younger brother, Chase, was the golden child. Not officially. Families like mine never say that part out loud. They just arrange the furniture of love, so one child always sits in the center, and the other learns to be grateful for the folding chair. Chase was handsome, loud, and full of plans he rarely finished. He had a way of leaning back in a chair and talking about his future like the rest of us had been invited to invest in it. When Chase quit community college after one semester, my father said, "Some men learn better outside a classroom." When Chase got fired from a building supply company for missing too many shifts, my mother said he just needs work that inspires him. When Chase moved back home at 28 and spent most mornings drinking coffee behind the counter at the hardware store, my father said, "He's preparing to take over the family legacy." Legacy. That word followed Chase everywhere. It covered his laziness. It excused his temper. It made my parents open their wallets, lower their standards, and call it love. I was not legacy. I was responsibility. I was the serious daughter, the difficult daughter, the one who noticed when things did not add up, the one who remembered every bill, every broken promise, every time my mother said, "Don't make this about you," when it was already being taken away from me. I started working when I was 16, not because my parents made me, but because I learned early that if I wanted anything for myself, I needed to build it with my own hands. I cleaned houses after school. At first it was neighbors, then friends of neighbors, then elderly couples from church whose children lived too far away to help. I learned how to remove hard water stains, how to organize medicine cabinets without embarrassing people, how to clean a home without making the owner feel ashamed for needing help. I was good at it, not because cleaning was easy, because I respected it. People think service work is small until they are the ones who need it. By 22, I had a schedule so full I hired my first employee. By 26, I had a company name, Brightside Home Services. By 34, I had 3 branches, 42 employees, contracts with apartment complexes, medical clinics, senior living centers, and busy families who needed someone they could trust with keys codes and the parts of their lives they did not show guests. It was not glamorous. No one throws champagne parties for deep cleaning rental units after tenants leave old pizza boxes in the closet. But my company paid rent. It paid health insurance. It put food on the tables of people who worked hard and deserved dignity. My parents never saw any of that. To them, I was still cleaning houses. My mother would ask, "Are you still doing that cleaning thing?" My father would say, "It's honest work, but don't act like you run General Motors." Chase would grin and say Nora gets paid to clean up after real families. I'm trying to build one. Every time he said something like that, my mother would give him a soft little warning. "Be nice, Chase." But she always smiled. That was how cruelty survived in my family. Nobody blessed it directly. They just let it sit at the table. 2 weeks before Thanksgiving, I sent my mother a birthday gift. Not expensive, just thoughtful. A framed photo of her and my grandmother standing in front of the old church kitchen, both of them laughing with flour on their aprons. I found it in an old box when Aunt June was clearing out her basement, had it restored, and put it in a simple wooden frame. My mother texted me one sentence, Received it. Thank you. That same afternoon, Chase brought her a crooked little shelf he had made from leftover wood at the hardware store. It leaned slightly to the right and still had pencil marks on one side. My mother posted it on Facebook. My son always knows how to make me feel loved. Handmade gifts mean the most. So blessed to have a child who remembers where he came from. A child, not children. I stared at that post longer than I should have. Then I closed the app and went back to reviewing payroll. That is what daughters like me learn to do. You swallow the small cuts because the big ones have not happened yet. Thanksgiving was supposed to be Chase's big announcement dinner. My mother called me the week before. Nora. She said your father wants everyone together this year. That's new, I said. She sighed. Don't be sharp. Chase has exciting news, and I want one peaceful holiday. One peaceful holiday meant one where I absorbed whatever they said without reacting. I almost told her I had plans. I almost stayed home in Philadelphia, ordered Thai food, and watched old movies under a blanket. But there is a stubborn, wounded part of people like me that keeps showing up. Not because we are foolish, because somewhere under the scar tissue, we still hope one day our family will look up and realize we were there the whole time. So I drove 90 minutes through gray November light with a pecan pie on the passenger seat. The sky was low. The fields outside Lancaster looked brown and tired. By the time I reached my parents' neighborhood, every porch had pumpkins, fake leaves, or early Christmas lights. It looked warm from the outside. That was always the trick. My mother opened the door before I knocked. She looked me up and down. You wore black. I looked at my sweater. It's just a sweater, Mom. For Thanksgiving. Behind her, Chase called from the hallway. Maybe she's mourning her personality. My mother pressed her lips together like she disapproved, but her eyes gave her away. She thought it was funny. I stepped inside anyway. The house smelled like turkey sage cinnamon candles and old resentment polished for company. The dining room table was set with my mother's best plates. There were little name cards at every seat. Dad at the head. Mom beside him. Chase near Dad. Aunt June across from Mom. 2 cousins near the middle. Me at the far end beside a folding chair pulled from the basement. My name card had a smudge through the N. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe my mother had rushed. But when you have spent your whole life at the edge of the photo, you notice where people place you. Chase noticed me looking. Careful, he said. Don't steal the good chair from someone with roots. I took off my coat slowly. Happy Thanksgiving to you too. Dinner began with prayer. My father bowed his head and thanked God for family hard work, second chances, and sons who understood responsibility. Sons, not children. Sons. Aunt June glanced at me, then quickly looked down. That was another family tradition. People noticed. They just rarely risked comfort by saying so. For the first half hour, I survived the usual little humiliations. My mother asked if I was still mostly cleaning houses. My father asked if I had thought about doing something with a real retirement plan. Chase asked whether my employees called me boss lady or mop queen. I smiled. I passed the rolls. I became smaller by the spoonful. Then Chase stood up with his wine glass. The room quieted instantly. He loved moments like that. Everybody, he said, I have some news. My mother clasped her hands under her chin. My father leaned back, already proud. Chase smiled like a mayor at a ribbon cutting. Callahan Hardware is officially entering a new chapter. The renovation is moving forward. By spring, the back half of the store will become Chase & Company, a coffee bar and community space built inside the family business. My mother started crying. Not a tear. A performance. Oh, Chase, she whispered. Your grandfather would be so proud. My father stood and hugged him hard. Aunt June clapped politely. One cousin said, That's awesome, man. I sat at the end of the table and watched my family celebrate a dream that had not earned a single dollar. I thought about the day I signed the lease for my first real office. No one came. I thought about the winter when 2 clients paid late, and I sold my grandmother's bracelet, the only thing I owned that felt precious, so I could make payroll on time. No one knew. I thought about the morning Brightside landed its first senior living contract, and I sat alone in my car crying because I had built something that might actually last. No one asked. Chase raised his glass higher. This is what legacy means, he said. Not running off to the city, not being ashamed of where you came from, not scrubbing other people's messes and pretending that's a calling. Legacy means staying and building something your family can be proud of. His eyes flicked to me. Everybody saw it. Everybody understood it. Nobody stopped it. My father looked directly at me. You could learn something from your brother. I set my fork down. About what? The whole table stilled. My father's jaw tightened. Commitment. I've run the same company for 12 years. Chase laughed. Company. I looked at him. Yes, Chase. Company. My mother's voice sharpened. Nora, don't start. I didn't start anything. You always do this, she said. You make your brother's moments uncomfortable. That one hit deep, not because it was new, because it was so practiced. My father leaned forward. You never know when to stop proving a point. I looked at him. Maybe because this family keeps making me one. The air changed. Aunt June whispered Tom let it go. But my father was already red in the face. No, he said. I'm tired of everyone walking on eggshells because Nora might feel underappreciated. I almost laughed. Underappreciated was when someone forgot to say thank you. This was something else. My father pointed his fork at me. You come into this house with your city attitude wearing black. Like you're too good for us, looking down on your brother when he's the one trying to keep this family name alive. I have never looked down on this family. Chase snorted. You don't have to. Your whole face does it. My mother touched his sleeve gently. Don't let her pull you into this, honey. Honey. He was 32 years old. My father kept going. You've got no husband, no children, no roots, and no understanding of loyalty. You don't support your brother. You barely visit your mother. You clean rich people's bathrooms and act like you're some kind of success story. My throat tightened, but I refused to cry. Not there, not for them. He said it then. You are dead weight, Nora. You always have been. The room went so quiet, I could hear the refrigerator humming in the kitchen. My aunt lowered her eyes. My cousins stared at their plates. Chase smiled into his wine glass. I looked at my mother. That was the final test. Not whether my father could be cruel. I already knew he could. The test was whether my mother would let him cut me open in front of the whole family and still call it peace. She looked at me for 1 second. Then she looked at Chase and whispered, Don't let her ruin your night. Something inside me stopped reaching. My father pointed toward the front door. You think you're too good for us, go. Sleep in your car. Maybe the cold will finally teach you humility. Chase raised his glass. To humility. I stood up, slowly, carefully. My chair scraped against the floor. I folded my napkin and placed it beside my plate. My hands were steady, which surprised me. I looked around the table. At my father's anger, my mother's silence, Chase's satisfaction, Aunt June's guilt, the cousins' discomfort, all of them watching me as if my reaction, not their cruelty, would decide what kind of person I was. I said Happy Thanksgiving. Then I walked out. Nobody followed me. Not my mother. Not my aunt. Nobody. The cold hit my face as soon as I stepped onto the porch. Across the street, a neighbor's inflatable turkey wobbled in the wind, smiling with its stupid cartoon eyes. I sat in my car with both hands on the steering wheel. Through the dining room window, I saw movement. Someone passed the potatoes. Someone laughed. Life continued before I had even backed out of the driveway. That was when I understood. They had not thrown me out of the family that night. They had simply made visible what had been true for years. On the drive back to Philadelphia, my phone buzzed twice. The first text was from my mother. You made your brother's night about yourself again. The second was from Chase. Don't come back until you learn respect. Respect. That word looked strange coming from people who used it to mean obedience. I pulled into a rest stop, read both messages under the harsh white parking lot lights, and turned my phone face down. Then I drove home. My apartment was quiet when I arrived. It was not fancy. Just a 2-bedroom in an old brick building with creaky floors, plants in the windows, and a kitchen I had painted pale blue myself. But nobody had ever pointed me toward the door there. Nobody had ever called me deadweight there. Nobody had ever made me earn my place at the table there. I hung up my coat, set my keys in the bowl by the door, and stood in the dark living room until the heater clicked on. Then I cried. Not the pretty kind. Not one tear down the cheek. I cried like a person whose body had finally found a safe room to fall apart in. The next morning, I woke up with swollen eyes and 43 unread emails. That is the thing about humiliation. It can split you open, but the world still expects payroll by noon. So I went to work. Brightside's Philadelphia office was on the 2nd floor above a dentist and a tax preparer. Nothing glamorous. The hallway smelled faintly like coffee and printer toner. My name was on the glass door in simple white letters. Nora Callahan. Brightside, Home Services. Every time I saw it, I remembered the girl who cleaned houses after school with a second-hand vacuum in her trunk. That girl would not have believed we made it this far. At noon, my operations manager, Mia, came into my office carrying soup. She was in her 40s, sharp-eyed, practical, and kind in a way that never felt soft. "You look like you fought a ghost," she said. "Family dinner." She winced. That bad. Worse. She set the soup on my desk. "Eat anyway." I smiled a little. "That your management advice?" "That's my human advice." Mia had worked with me for 6 years. She knew enough about my family to know when to stop asking. By Saturday afternoon, the first lie reached me. My cousin Allison called while I was folding laundry. Allison was the only Callahan who had ever looked at me like a person instead of a problem. She taught second grade, lived 10 minutes from my parents, and heard every piece of church gossip before it became public. "Nora," she said, "I need to tell you something before you hear it from somebody cruel." I sat down on the edge of my bed. "What happened?" She sighed. "Your mom told people after service that your business is failing." I closed my eyes. "She said you've been under a lot of pressure financially. She said your father tried to give you tough love at Thanksgiving and you stormed out because you can't handle being corrected." Tough love. People love that phrase when the love is missing, and all they have left is the tough. Allison kept going. "She also said they're worried you might start asking family for money." I laughed once. It came out empty. I have never asked them for money. "I know. My company just signed a 3-year contract with a hospital group." "I know, Nora. They know nothing about my life." Allison was quiet. Then she said something that hurt more than the gossip. "I think they know more than they admit. They just don't want anyone else to." After we hung up, I made the mistake of checking Chase's Facebook. There it was, the Thanksgiving photo. My father at the head of the table, my mother smiling softly, Chase in the center with one arm around Dad, the cousins, Aunt June, the food, the candles, the perfect family. My chair was cropped out, not empty, not visible, gone. The caption said, "Thankful for the ones who stay loyal to family. Big things coming for Callahan Hardware. Legacy isn't for quitters." Underneath, people commented, "Your grandpa would be proud. Beautiful family. Can't wait for the café. Chase, you're doing amazing things." I stared at that photo until my eyes burned. It is one thing to leave a table. It is another thing to watch your family edit the evidence that you were ever invited. For a moment, my fingers hovered over the comment box. I wanted to write, "You cropped out my chair, but not the daughter you used when you needed something." But I did not know that part yet. I only knew something inside me had gone cold. 2 days later, the bank called. It was Monday morning. Rain streaked down my office window. I was reviewing payroll when Mia buzzed me. "There's a Denise Porter from Red Maple Bank on line 2. She says it's about Callahan Hardware." My stomach tightened. "Callahan Hardware," I picked up. "This is Nora." The woman's voice was professional but careful. "Ms. Callahan, my name is Denise Porter. I'm calling regarding the Callahan Hardware renovation loan. We're missing updated income information from you." I frowned. "From me?" "Yes. Since you're listed as supporting guarantor, we need updated documentation before review." I sat back slowly. "I'm sorry. I'm listed as what?" There was a pause. Not a normal pause. A pause where someone realizes the floor may not be where they thought it was. Denise said, "Ms. Callahan, I think it would be best if you came in." I drove to Lancaster the next morning. Not to my parents' house. Not to the store. To the bank. Red Maple Bank sat on Main Street between a bakery and a pharmacy. It had wreaths on the windows and framed photos of covered bridges on the wall. Nothing about it looked like a place where a family's secret could be waiting. Denise Porter met me in a small office with a round table. She was maybe in her 50s with kind eyes and the nervous posture of someone who had opened a file and found something ugly inside. She slid a folder toward me. "This renovation loan was opened 18 months ago," she said. "It was used for the Callahan Hardware expansion and cafe build-out." I said nothing. "Your father and brother are the primary names on the account. Your mother is listed in the household financial information, and you are listed as supporting guarantor." She turned one page around. There was my name, my address, my company income, and at the bottom a signature that tried very hard to be mine. It was close enough to pass if nobody cared. But I cared. I knew the way my N curved. I knew the way I crossed the double L in Callahan. I had signed thousands of payroll checks, vendor forms, employee birthday cards, condolence notes, bank slips. This was not my signature. My hands went cold. "Who gave you this?" Denise swallowed. "The application came through your father and brother." My father and brother. I heard my father's voice again. Dead weight. I heard Chase. "Legacy isn't for quitters." I looked at the paper and understood something so painful that for a moment I forgot to breathe. They had been using the daughter they mocked as the quiet support beam for the son they worshipped. Denise explained the situation gently. The renovation had gone over budget. The cafe equipment was expensive. Payments had fallen behind. The bank needed updated information because the account was close to falling apart. She used careful words because bankers are trained to soften disasters. I translated them into plain English. Chase's dream was sinking. My parents had tied the family store to it, possibly the house too, and my name had made the whole thing look safer than it really was. I asked for copies of anything connected to me. Denise gave me what she could. As I stood to leave, she said, "Miss Callahan, I'm sorry. I assumed you knew." I looked back at her. So did they. Outside, I sat in my car with the folder on the passenger seat. Across the street, Callahan Hardware stood beneath a gray sky. The front window had been painted in white letters. Coming soon. Chase & Company. A Callahan family legacy. Through the glass, I could see Chase inside with a contractor. He was pointing at the ceiling, talking with his hands, smiling like a man building a cathedral instead of a coffee bar beside shelves of plumbing tape. My father stood beside him, arms crossed, proud. Neither of them looked worried. Why would they? They thought the daughter they called dead weight was carrying them. I drove back to Philadelphia with the folder beside me and a calm so cold it scared me. That night I did not call my parents. The old me would have. The old me would have demanded answers. She would have wanted them to admit they were scared, desperate, ashamed. She would have wanted an explanation soft enough to sleep with. But I was done asking people to make their betrayal easier to swallow. I called Maribel instead. Maribel was my financial advisor. She had guided me through every Brightside expansion since my second branch, and she had a way of speaking that made panic stand up straight and behave. I told her everything. The Thanksgiving dinner, the post, the church gossip, the bank folder, the signature. When I finished, she was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Nora, listen to me carefully. First, we protect your name. Then we protect your company. Then we decide how much grace they deserve." Grace. I used to think grace meant letting people hurt you and calling yourself mature for staying silent. I was beginning to understand grace could also mean ending the damage without becoming cruel. Over the next week, the picture became clear. Chase's coffee bar was not a simple renovation. It was a whole with a logo, espresso machines, custom counters, imported tile, new plumbing, a handmade sign, a marketing deposit, special lighting. A designer Chase found online who convinced him that small-town authenticity required a very expensive reclaimed wood wall. The hardware store had been steady before Chase tried to make it impressive. It had survived because people needed batteries, paint keys, bolts, furnace filters, snow shovels, and advice from someone who knew what he was talking about. Then Chase decided ordinary was embarrassing. He wanted customers to photograph the store. My grandfather had wanted customers to trust it. There is a difference. The bank did not want scandal. They wanted the debt handled. My forged name made the file stronger because my business income made Chase's dream look less risky. That was the part that turned my hurt into action. They had not only humiliated me, they had put Brightside at risk. Not just me, my employees. Mia, who had 2 teenagers and a mortgage. Daniel, who trained new hires and sent half his paycheck to help his mother. Tasha, who started as a part-time cleaner and now managed an entire team. People who trusted me to keep the ground steady beneath them. My family thought my work was small because it did not shine. But it held people up. I would not let Chase's coffee fantasy threaten that. Maribel spoke to the bank. I sat in on the calls. No drama. No courtroom. No police at the door. I did not want a revenge movie. I wanted my name back. The bank agreed to a clean solution. I would cover the overdue amount and take control of the loan, but my name would be cleared from the original support role. From that point on, my family would have to deal with me. Not because I wanted their store, not because I wanted their house, because if they used my name to hold up the lie, I would be the one to decide how the lie ended. When everything was approved, I sat alone in my office after dark. Philadelphia glowed outside the window. For years, I had wanted my family to see what I built. Now they were about to. Not at a celebration, not with flowers. In a conference room where every truth they ignored would sit between us like an unpaid bill. 2 days before the meeting, Allison called. "Nora," she said quietly, "your dad is telling people the bank is trying to steal the store." I rubbed my forehead. Of course he is. And Chase posted again. I closed my eyes. What did he say? She hesitated. It said, "Some people abandon family, then wonder why they're not included in the blessing." I stared at the wall. Even while the walls were closing in, Chase still knew how to make himself the hero and me the warning label. Allison asked, "Are you okay seeing them?" I looked at the folder on my desk. The false signature, the late notices, the cropped Thanksgiving photo, my mother's text. "You made your brother's night about yourself again." "Yes," I said, "because this time I'm not going there to be chosen." Friday came cold and bright, the kind of winter sun that makes every window look sharper. I arrived at Red Maple Bank 20 minutes early. I wore a navy coat, simple earrings, and my hair pulled back. No dramatic suit, no entourage, no lawyer waiting to frighten them. Just Maribel Denise from the bank and me. I wanted the moment to stay human. That mattered, not because they deserved softness, because I refused to let my dignity depend on cruelty. At 4:06, my parents walked in. My mother looked polished in the way she always did when she was falling apart privately. Her hair was sprayed into place. Her lipstick was careful. Her eyes were red. My father walked beside her with his jaw clenched. Chase came last. Expensive boots, wool coat, the same annoyed expression he wore anytime consequences interrupted his confidence. He stopped the second he saw me. "What is she doing here?" My mother's eyes widened. "Nora." My father looked at Denise. "This is a private family business matter." I looked at him. "It became my business when you put my name on it." The room went silent. Chase laughed once. "What are you talking about?" Denise gestured toward the chairs. "Please sit down." Chase stayed standing. I asked a question. Maribel opened her folder calmly. "Denise said Ms. Callahan is now the person handling the renovation loan." For a moment, nobody understood. Then my mother's hand flew to her mouth. My father's face lost color. Chase looked from Denise to Maribel to me. "No," he said. "That's impossible." I folded my hands on the table. "It's not." Dad's voice came out rough. "You bought our loan. I paid the overdue amount and took control of it. Why would you do that?" I looked straight at him. "Because you used my name." My mother whispered, "Nora." Not shocked, afraid. That told me enough. I turned to her. "You knew." She began crying immediately. Not wild crying, controlled crying. The kind that asks for sympathy before it answers the question. "Your father said it was just paperwork," she said. "He said it would never affect you." Just paperwork. I looked at my mother, the woman who once told me not to embarrass the family by mentioning I cleaned houses. "You let them forge my name and called it paperwork." My father slammed his palm against the table. "We did what we had to do to keep the family business alive." "No," I said. "You did what you had to do to keep Chase's dream alive." Chase's face reddened. "Don't put this on me." I turned to him. "Whose cafe was it?" He looked away. "Whose espresso machines?" No answer. "Whose imported tile?" His jaw tightened. "Whose post said legacy isn't for quitters?" He snapped. "You're enjoying this." "No, Chase," I said. "I'm surviving it." That quieted him. For once, my brother had no joke ready. My father leaned forward, voice low and bitter. "You have money. You could have helped us without making a scene." I almost smiled. "That is exactly why you thought you could do it." His eyes flickered. "You thought because I had money, my consent did not matter. You thought because I was independent, my reputation did not matter. You thought because I stopped asking you for love, you could still use my name." My mother sobbed into a tissue. Chase muttered, "You always make yourself the victim." I looked at him. "You cropped me out of the family photo," I said, "but somehow remembered me when you needed a signature." The room froze. Not quiet. Frozen. Even Denise looked down. My father's mouth opened, then closed. My mother stopped crying for one suspended second. Chase stared at the table like the wood grain had suddenly become fascinating. For the first time in my life, the whole Callahan family went silent. I let that silence stay. Some truths deserve room. Then my father whispered, "We only used your name because Chase needed a chance." I looked at him. "No, Dad. You used my name because you never thought my life mattered enough to ask." My mother pressed the tissue to her mouth. Chase leaned back like he had been hit. Maribel slid one page across the table. Just one. I had insisted on that. No huge stack. No complicated lecture. No legal performance. Just plain choices. Sell the store building and clear the debt. Refinance without my name. Set up a strict payment plan. Or let the bank move forward and sell what needed to be sold. My father picked up the paper with shaking hands. "You'd make us sell Grandpa's store." That sentence hurt, because I loved that store. Before Chase made it a prop for his ambition, I loved it. I loved the smell of sawdust rubber mats, brass keys fertilizer, and peppermint gum by the register. I loved sitting on the stool behind the counter when I was 9 while my grandfather sorted receipts. He used to say, "Nora, a family name is like a house key. Don't hand it to people who don't respect the door. My family had spent my name like loose change. I said, I'm not making you sell anything. I'm making you face what you already chose. My mother reached across the table. I did not take her hand. Nora, please, she whispered. We were scared. So was I said. But when I was scared, you called me dramatic. When Chase was scared, you gave him my name. Chase stood suddenly. You always wanted this. I looked up at him. What? He pointed at me. You wanted to prove Dad loved me more. You wanted us to look bad. You've been waiting your whole life for a chance to punish us because you couldn't stand not being the favorite. There it was. Even at the bottom, Chase found a way to turn the knife around and hand me the handle. I stood too. Not fast. Not angry. Just enough to make him stop talking. No Chase. I wanted a mother who noticed my empty chair. I wanted a father who did not confuse your ambition with character. I wanted a brother who could receive love without stealing mine too. His face changed. I continued, but wanting those things kept me tied to people who used my hope against me. That ends today. My father rubbed both hands over his face. For the first time, he looked old to me. Not strong, not commanding, just old and cornered by the consequences he thought would fall on someone else. What do you want from us? He asked. That question opened a door in me. Behind it stood every version of myself who had waited for this moment. The little girl at the edge of Christmas photos. The teenager cleaning houses while Chase slept until noon. The young woman sitting alone in her car after signing her first office lease. The daughter looking at her mother across Thanksgiving dinner, begging silently for protection that never came. What did I want? An apology, a public confession, a father who admitted I had built something real, a mother who said I should have chosen you too, a brother who finally understood that being loved loudly did not give him the right to make everyone else small. I wanted all of that once, but wanting it had kept me hungry at tables where nobody planned to feed me. So I told the truth. I want my name cleared. I want you to stop lying about me. I want Chase to stop using the word legacy for things other people pay for. And I want your decision by next Friday. My mother cried. Dad stared at the paper. Chase whispered, You're really going to do this to us? I looked at him for a long moment. No, I said. I'm finally going to stop letting you do this to me. Nobody spoke after that. The meeting ended without shouting. That was the strangest part. No slammed doors. No dramatic chase into the parking lot. Just my parents walking out smaller than when they came in. My mother paused at the door and looked back at me. For 1 second, I thought she might say something real. Instead, she said, I hope you can live with this. I nodded. I already lived with what you did. She left. Chase was last. He stood in the doorway, eyes glossy with anger. You could have saved me, he said. I picked up my folder. I did. He scoffed. No, you didn't. Yes, I said. I saved you from thinking love means everyone else pays for your dreams. His face twisted. Then he walked out. After they were gone, I sat very still. Maribel placed a hand on my shoulder. You okay? I looked at the empty chairs across from me. For years, I thought confronting them would feel like victory. It did not. It felt like setting down a heavy box I had carried so long my arms forgot they were hurting. I think so, I said. Outside Lancaster looked unchanged. The bakery still had pumpkin pies in the window. The church bell still rang 5 times. Cars still rolled slowly down Main Street. Life did not stop because my family's story cracked open. But mine changed. The following week was silent. No apology. No explanation. No call from my father demanding respect. No Bible verse from my mother. No post from Chase about legacy. The silence felt different from before. Before, their silence made me feel unwanted. Now it felt like distance. And distance, I was learning, could be mercy. Allison kept me updated carefully. My mother stopped telling people I was failing. Now she said Nora is very private about her business. My father stopped opening the hardware store every morning. Chase avoided the diner where he used to sit with coffee and talk about his vision. On Friday, the decision came. They would sell the hardware store building, not the house. Maribel told me I had every right to let the house remain tied to the mess until everything was paid. She was probably right, but I remembered my mother planting tulips by the porch when I was little. I remembered my father teaching me to ride a bike in that driveway before pride hardened him into someone who could point me toward the street. I remembered that house before it became a place I had to survive. I did not want revenge that made me look like them. I wanted my name back, so I agreed to separate the house once the store sale covered enough of the debt. My parents would not be homeless. They would just have to live smaller. Honestly, The store sold to a local couple named Ben and Marcy Rhodes. They had run a small repair business for years and actually understood customers' inventory, early mornings, and the sacred small-town art of knowing which pipe fitting a man needed before he finished describing the leak. They kept the original Callahan hardware sign. They even kept one corner for coffee, but they named it Grandpa Joe's Counter after my grandfather. No neon, no imported tile, no fake legacy wall, just a counter, a pot of coffee, and old men arguing about snowblowers. My grandfather would have loved it. Chase & Company never opened. The handmade sign disappeared. The espresso machines were returned. The imported tile went back in boxes. The Instagram page went quiet. A month later, Chase moved to Harrisburg and took a sales job with a building supply company. Allison said he told people Lancaster had become too small for his vision. That sounded like Chase. My parents stayed in their house, but they became quieter in town. Not ruined, not destroyed, just humbled. People stopped asking my mother for advice about raising grateful children. My father no longer stood behind the hardware counter telling customers what young people lacked. The world did not punish them dramatically. It simply stopped protecting their version of the story. And me, I went home, not to the Callahan house, to my real home, Philadelphia. Brightside, my employees, my quiet apartment, my life. A life I had built while they were busy calling me small. 2 months later, we opened our Maryland branch. At the small staff dinner, Mia raised her glass and said, "To Nora, who built a company where people are treated like people." I had to look down for a second. Because sometimes the words you need most do not come from the family that raised you. Sometimes they come from the people who saw you clearly while your own blood kept squinting. 6 months after Thanksgiving, I bought a house. Not a mansion, not some cold glass trophy. A small stone house outside Philadelphia with a crooked mailbox, a front porch, and a maple tree in the yard. The first night I slept there, rain tapped against the windows, and I woke up at 2 a.m. with the strangest feeling. No one could throw me out. No one could point toward the door. No one could tell me I did not belong, because I had built belonging with my own hands. The next Thanksgiving, I hosted dinner. I ruined the turkey. The gravy was lumpy. The rolls burned on the bottom, but my table was full. Mia came with her husband. Allison brought her kids. 2 employees stopped by after visiting their families. One neighbor brought pie. Nobody sat on a folding chair at the far end. Nobody made jokes that cut. Nobody turned someone else's pain into entertainment. Before we ate, Allison lifted her glass. To the people who make room. That was when I finally cried. Not because I missed my old family table, because I did not. I cried because for the first time in my life, I understood that love should not feel like begging for a chair. My mother still sends a card every Thanksgiving. I do not open them right away. Sometimes they sit on the entry table for a week. Sometimes 2. Healing does not always mean reunion. Sometimes healing means your hands stop shaking when their name appears on your phone. Sometimes forgiveness is not a doorway back. Sometimes it is just the moment you stop carrying the fire they started. I used to think family meant staying no matter how badly they treated you. I used to think being strong meant swallowing the insult, smiling through the lie, and proving yourself until they finally admitted you mattered. But dignity is not something you earn from people committed to misunderstanding you. Dignity is what you protect when they refuse to give you respect. My father called me dead weight at Thanksgiving, but the truth was I had been carrying them for years. Their pride, their lies, their favorite son's dreams, their version of me. And when I finally set all of it down, I did not become heartless. I became free. So if you have ever been the ignored daughter, the blamed son, the family outsider, the one they used but never thanked, I hope you hear me clearly. Walking away does not mean you failed your family. Sometimes it means you finally stopped failing yourself. And if you were sitting across from them in that bank room after they humiliated you, lied about you, cropped you out of the family photo, and still used your name when they needed saving, what would you have done? Would you have saved the family legacy, or would you have saved yourself?